Hello and welcome back to Granted Gardens. My name is Melissa and today we are going to be tending to the garden a bit. It's been about 2 weeks-ish since we planted our tomatoes and they are growing and they are growing fast. So one thing that I stand by wholeheartedly is heavily pruning tomatoes. We've started heavily pruning our tomatoes within the last couple years, and the biggest difference that I see is the plants stay much healthier for much longer and we get a heavy harvest. So our tomato plants, we usually start them, we put them in the ground around May 15th. Last year, after heavily pruning and keeping up on pruning, we were still harvesting beautiful tomatoes well into October. So I'm going to show you guys how I prune my tomato plants. So here is my tomato bed, and you can see that they're up to about 2-3 feet tall now, and they're pretty dense. So I want to go through and prune these and make sure that they get enough airflow. So tomato plants tend to be very susceptible to things like mold, mildew, and blight. So there are a few things that you can do to ensure that you're doing everything you possibly can to reduce these issues. One of those things would be to take off the bottom foot of branches to make sure that there's plenty of airflow, and also to make sure that there's a clearing there for when it rains or when you're watering, that the dirt can't splash back to underneath of the leaves. That's really where a lot of those problems are going to start. Now, you can prune the daylights out of your tomatoes, and chances are they're probably still going to end their year with a little bit of disease. That's just kind of the cycle of life. But this is definitely a few steps that you can take to prevent as much as possible, and also make sure that your tomatoes have the longest, healthiest life that they possibly can. So we're going to start off here with this tomato plant. Again, he's about 2 feet tall, but you can see that we've got these leaves that are down here near the base, and you can see that some of them have started to turn a bit, and this could be potentially from the water being splashed back on the bottoms of the leaves. So we're actually going to go through and we're going to just snip these off. You can see this little one right here that was coming up in the armpit. Those are called suckers. Those are the plant's way of spreading out and becoming a bigger plant. Now, when you're growing for food production, bigger is not always better. You really want the plant to focus more on establishing fruit than growing bigger. So we're actually going to go ahead and snip those off as well. I'm going to continue up this plant, taking off the leaves and taking off the suckers. I'm going to take this one as well. Then once you get to the top of the plant about here, you're going to stop. You want to make sure that there's plenty of leaves there for the plant to photosynthesize, so you don't want to take away all of the leaves to where it doesn't have the ability to produce food for itself and grow. So we're going to leave that top section just the way it is. Now I could go through here, and if I did see any suckers, I can pull them off. This one doesn't really have any, so he's good. Moving on. All right, so we're going to move over to this next plant here as a second example. Again, he's got some longer leaves that this time they aren't really coming from the bottom so much. This one's still coming up from the top. But the fact that it is coming down and pretty much touching the ground, we're going to want to take that one off as well, because even though it starts up here, the leaves can touch the ground. If they are touching the ground, they can get that bounce back of the water. Also, again, our goal is to get airflow. So essentially, I want to be able to see a clearing through here to make sure that there's plenty of air being accessed underneath and on top of all of the leaves. So we're going to go ahead and snip. I'm going to take off that sucker. I'm going to go through and take off these bottom leaves. I'm going to take off this one and that sucker. And I'm actually going to go up and take this one off. And then I'm going to go through, and now that we're up to the closer to the top, I'm going to leave this one, but I'm going to actually take off that sucker. Now, suckers are fun because if you actually want to start working on maybe a second round of tomatoes, you can take these suckers, you can drop them in water, they will grow roots, and then this will turn into an entirely new tomato plant. I think it takes a couple weeks for it to root, and then you can just put it in dirt and it will grow a brand new plant. So consider that. If you have more space that you're able to grow more tomatoes, hang on to your suckers. So once you're done, it should look something like this. It looks very bare here at the base, but as you go up, you've got plenty of leaves for the plant to continue growing. Now, once this starts to fill in and they start to grow more, you want to also continue to think about airflow. So once they get bigger and more established, you may actually start taking off some of the leaves that are closer here to the tops, just to ensure that there's enough air to circulate through your plants. You'll probably take off far less of the leaves at the top, but you just want to make sure that there's plenty of space and air to flow around each section of the leaves. And that's it for today. Super simple. This is something that you're gonna have to come back and do probably every couple weeks as your plants continue to grow. But you will definitely end up with far more healthier tomato plants, more productive. This also allows you to be able to plant them in smaller spaces. So if you do have quite a few tomato plants crammed into one spot, making sure that you heavily prune them will ensure their success. So here I've got 9 tomato plants. This is a, I think, 4x4 bed. They're definitely crammed in here, but with proper pruning, I will not have a problem all season long. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.